Welcome to this webinar. Today we're going to talk to you about secure banking in NetSuite and the FAST4 secure file transfer suite app that we offer. Before we start, a few notes from my side. Because we're with quite a large group today, everyone has been put on mute to make sure we avoid background noises. My colleague Dennis van der Graaf will be giving the demo today. I will be monitoring the chat. So if any questions come up, please feel free to use the Q&A functionality of Zoom. I will be monitoring that during the demo. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. If we have time at the end of the demonstration, we might have a couple of minutes still to do a live Q&A. If not, then I'll make sure that any question that was not answered and is still open, that we will answer that by email and share that with you after the webinar. The webinar is recorded. So after the webinar, we will share that recording with everyone. Of course, also at the end of the presentation, I'll give you some contact details. So we're also more than happy to still plan a follow-up and answer any questions that you might have. So with those notes, let's go ahead and start the webinar. I'll start with a little bit of an introduction and a presentation. I think that most of the people on the call today will know who we are, FAST4. For the few that might have had this forwarded by a colleague, let me just give a very short introduction. So FAST4 is a NetSuite partner. We're based out of Amsterdam and Antwerp. Founded in 2012 as one of the very first, if not the very first NetSuite partner in the Benelux. And we've been developing suite applications since 2014. And if we look at the suite application side of our business, the quote on the right-hand side really sums up our mission in life. It's helping our customers get the best out of NetSuite. And we do that by developing affordable, native NetSuite applications that remove any unnecessary manual work. Native meaning that everything we do, because we are a NetSuite party first, is a native part of NetSuite. We don't use external systems or external interfaces. And today we're going to look at our secure file transfer application. A term that we will be using a lot is SFTP. To give a little bit of a context on that, what does SFTP stand for? It stands for Secure File Transfer Protocol. So that's not something that we invented, or that's not something specific to our application. But it's a protocol for secure communications and transfer of files on the internet. And SFTP has a few characteristics, so you can see the three main ones here. With SFTP exchange, there's always an authentication required to the server you're connecting to. The contents of the file cannot be accessed by external parties, and the files that are sent are encrypted. So really meaning that it's a safe and secure way of transferring data on the internet. And our SFTP connector really works well with our banking offers and offers a lot of synergy with the banking process in NetSuite. So to give you a bit of a context before we dive into the demo, if you look at the banking processes in NetSuite, we split those up in inbound processes and payment processes. So inbound processes are when you gather information from your bank, so statement reports, and process those in NetSuite. Now, we've also developed an application for this, the application Bank Reconciliation. It's my expectation that probably the majority of the people on the call today will be working with it, or at least will have heard of it. We're not really going to go into an extensive demo of Bank Reconciliation today. We do have some demos available on our website that we can share with you afterwards. But it's an application that helps to automate the processing of bank statements. But in the standard way of working with that application, that still requires some manual work. So if you look on the left-hand side of this slide, for the inbound process, what our customers usually do is download their online bank statement, save that to a local machine, and then upload that into our application for processing. And that comes with some additional risk. So it's a manual processing, and there is some potential security risk as you're storing that file on a local computer, and the data is not encrypted and might be altered when it's on that computer. And it's the same for the outbound process. So the outbound process is usually done with the standard NetSuite functionality, the electronic file transfer module. With that, you can mark transactions that you want to pay and generate an outbound payment file from NetSuite. that you can then upload to your bank. And normally that would follow pretty much the same type of process. So you export that file to a computer, then upload it to your bank with the same corresponding security risks. And with our SFTP connector, we really can automate that, and we can make it a lot more secure. So if you look on both on the inbound side and the outbound side of things, for inbound, with our connector, you would actually be able to pick up those online bank statements from an environment in your bank, load those into NetSuite. Those can then be automatically processed by our bank statement application. And the same for outbound is that when a file is generated, we can pick that up. We can automatically send it to the bank, really making the process less manual, but also more secure, because we make sure that you cannot, that the files cannot be altered in any way, shape, or form. So that leads to really 4 key benefits that this setup has. We reduce manual work, we improve security, and all of that 100% natively in NetSuite with an affordable and easy to use application. So with that as the introduction, I recommend that Dennis will show us this in NetSuite. So Dennis, I'm gonna make you the host, and I'll make sure I'll put myself on mute. Dennis, are you able to share?
Yeah, I'm going to start now.
Perfect. So take it away, and I'll be monitoring the Q&A from now, guys, for any questions that you might have.
Perfect. Just to be sure, you can see my screen.
I can hear you loud and clear, and I can see your screen.
Perfect. Thank you. So for today, I'm going to demo our SFTP connector. I will highlight several sections. Also, I will show you some customizations that I've done inside this particular account to further protect the complete payment stream and import of bank statement data. The first thing what you need to keep in mind is that when you are going to connect with an SFTP host, and the SFTP host could be a bank, or it could be a supplier, or maybe a customer where you would like to send particular files to, it always starts with a connection type. And with SFTP, you could have a standard connection that is using a username and a password, so that's a less secure way of connecting. But the most common way of connecting with the SFTP server is with a key pair. And that simply means that you have a private key that is somewhere inside your NetSuite system, and a public key that you're going to provide to your SFTP host. And if they are going to match up with your username, you have a secure connection at that point. The first step to make sure that everything is really secure inside your system is that Fast4 will provide you, when the tool is installed, a secure way of creating the key pair. To create a key pair, the user can simply navigate to new SFTP private key. When you click on this one, you can simply provide a name. So this can be, for example, your bank name or any other kind of name. And when I type this, I can simply press save, and our solution will now safely create a key pair inside your NetSuite system. The private key will be stored inside NetSuite in a way that nobody is able to access that key anymore. So that key is stored only available for our scripts, but nobody else, even an administrator, can access that. And the public key is currently displayed on my screen. So normally when you set up the connection, you copy the data on the screen and you simply send it to your bank or to your supplier or customer, and they can then set up the connection from their end. With this first step, you are already sure that the connection is secure and nobody can break in, because the public key is only available for the extended party, and the private key is safely stored inside your NetSuite system. As soon as we have a key, we can create a configuration, and our solution allows you to create one or multiple configurations. So we have no limitation. You can connect with one SFTP server, 5 or 10 or maybe 100. That is basically your choice. I will show you now the connection configuration. So if you go to the SFTP connector, we have the main configuration. If I open this one, you can see I have currently one for this webinar, the SFTP bank server. And if I open this one, our tool will directly try to connect and check if the connection is working properly or not. So in a few seconds, we should see some results. So we can see we have here actually a live connection with the SFTP server. And I just would like to highlight some sections here. So the first section is the key again. The key that we just created is something you can simply enter with the internal ID. Your SFTP host will always provide the username, and of course, they will provide the IP address of that server and the port to which you need to communicate. And with this information, you can already connect. So it is pretty straightforward to connect with an SFTP server. Some more things that are really interesting to highlight is that our tool also allows you to, if needed, to use PGP encryption. And PGP encryption is an additional layer of protection that can be included inside the data transfer. So with PGP encryption, we have the option to sign a file. So simply it means that we are going to sign the file that we are really a certain party. We can also encrypt the data. So that means we are going to encrypt it and nobody else that has the correct key can encrypt the data. And it also works the other way around. So the sending party, for example, the bank that is sending you bank statements, can also encrypt the data to be sure that nobody can capture it in any way. And they can provide you with a public key so that you can decrypt the data that's incoming. So that's an additional layer of protection. We do not only support PGP encryption, we also support secure envelope. And secure envelope is the same kind of protocol that allows you to simply encrypt the data that you're going to send to the bank. Of course, this additional layer of protection can be really interesting if you're going to send payment files to your bank, because that is really sensitive data. So an additional layer of protection can do no harm. But of course, it is depending if your SFTP host is providing this support. When you have a configuration like this, we can start with configuring up and download configurations. And first, I would like to show you a download configuration. So that's a configuration that allows us to pull data from for example, the bank to our NetSuite system. So in this case, we could be pulling bank statements. Again, in our tool, we have the download configuration. And if I open the section, you will see I have currently 2 listings. And I will use for the webinar the lowest one, the bank service statements download. If I press view, I can see directly what is currently pending on the SFTP server. This will take a few seconds. There it comes. So to highlight some things on the download configuration, you can first see which connection we are using. We can see in which folder we are currently searching on the SFTP server, so the folder bank statements. And we can see what is currently inside this particular folder. So we can see we have several bank statements are waiting for download. Within download configuration, we can create as many configurations as we would like to. So one SFTP connector can have maybe one or multiple download configurations. In this configuration, I've decided to download only certain files. So if the naming pattern is matching a certain algorithm. So in this case, I've done a really straightforward configuration that it should be an exact naming convention. And you can see because of this line is currently red highlighted. So if I would download, it would only download this file at this point. I can decide here also where I'm going to download. So it is going to download to folder 180. And if you would like to do something on the remote server, you can also say, for example, what our tool should be doing after download. So we can remove the file from the SFTP so that we do not download it again, but we can also move it on the SFTP. So if there's, for example, a downloaded folder or processed folder, we can move the file that we have downloaded to that particular folder so that you always have some kind of backup on the SFTP server. If you would like to extend the logic that we are providing you can also say, I'm going to create a record after download. So we can create a custom record of your choice, connect the file to it, and at that point, you can do anything with that custom record as you would like to. So it is really flexible with this configuration. We even provide you the option to trigger a CSV import. And inside NetSuite, you can create a safe CSV import that is, for example, responsible for importing data based on price list, or maybe it is another kind of data that you would like to import automatically. So when you have a safe search inside NetSuite, you can say, I would like to trigger that safe search automatically after import. And at that point, when our tool has downloaded the data, it will trigger the import automatically. This download configuration can be triggered manually by simply pressing download files, and then our tool will directly download the files, and I will press it for now. And you can also say, I'm going to schedule this process. So we include some scripts inside our bundle, and with those scripts, you can say to our tool, download it, for example, every morning at 7 a.m. or simply download every hour, or maybe every 30 minutes or 15 minutes. So you can decide when this particular download should be happening. And our tool will simply execute it based on what you have defined here. At this point, we can see folder 180 is a folder that we did download the data to. So if I would open my file cabinet and I would now go to my SFTP folder, I can see in the folders, in my SFTP bank folder that I have folder 180, and we can see now that we have one file inside the unprocessed folder. So this is currently stored inside my NetSuite file cabinet. And to show you a little bit more about how far you can automate the process, when this file is inside our NetSuite system, we can also decide to automatically import it into the Fast4 bank reconciliation tool. So at this point, if you have the bank reconciliation installed, you could go to the bank reconciliation setup and you can go to the bank statement file processing. If I open this section, we can create a configuration that is automatically processing the data. And this is also a scheduled process on the background. If we would open this, we can see it is a really straightforward configuration. We define the folder where the data is incoming. So in this case, again, the folder 180 where the SFTP was downloading the data. And step number 2 is the process folder. So when our tool did process the data, it will shift from folder 180 to 181. And here again, we can see we have a matching rule. So we can use here a regex expression where we decide which files we would like to pick up from the unprocessed folder and how we would like to process them. So in my case, the data that's incoming is only CAM53. So I'm going to say here, simply process it with my CAM53 configuration. And with this simple step, we can further automate the process. And that means if, for example, the SFTP is going to download at 7 in the morning all the bank statements, this script can start at 7:15, and at 7:30, all bank statements will already be inside the system, and they can even be reconciled with all the transactions that were automatically matched. The next section I would like to show you is the upload configuration. So again, I'm going to the SFTP connector, and here we have the upload configuration. And also for the upload configuration, we have the same behavior. We can create one or multiple upload configurations for the same SFTP server. In this case, I will simply open the records to show you how we can configure this. So again, we define the connection that we're going to use. So again, our SFTP bank server. We define in which directory we are going to upload. So on the SFTP server, there is a folder named batches, and that is where we are going to upload the data to. So in this case, this upload configuration is later going to be used to upload payment batches automatically to our bank. We can also decide where the file is coming from. So this is the default field on the EFT payment file that we will see a little bit later, where NetSuite is storing the file that is created during the payment creation process. And here we also have again the options to encrypt and decrypt. So we have here a sign with PGP option. So we can sign it as we are the original owner. We can say we would like to encrypt the file. So that means that the data is encrypted, and if somebody would capture the file, they can simply not read it. Only the receiving party has the ability to encrypt the data again. And if you're using secure envelope, we can simply select this checkbox, and then the data will be encrypted with a secure envelope. At this point, with this configuration, we are already able to upload data. But of course, there is some more configuration needed to finalize that. So at this point, I'm going to create a payment batch together with you. So I'm going to go to the payment file, bill payment processing. And inside this account, I have included the default approval workflow for payment files from NetSuite. Also, I've included an additional configuration, that's a custom script that will remove certain buttons that normally cannot be removed. And I have included a custom workflow action script that is going to finally upload the data. So step one is, of course, I'm going to create securely the payment file. And the plus point that we have when we are creating it in this way is that NetSuite will not directly create the actual file. It will create the file only after approval. So in this case, I will simply press submit. And NetSuite is now creating on the background a batch that first needs approval before it is going to be actually processed. There it comes. In my configuration, I've decided that I'm also the approver at this point. But simply inside NetSuite, you can create a configuration where you can say if the amount of the payment batch is, for example, less than 1,500 euros, somebody must approve it, or if it is higher than 5,000, somebody else must approve it. So you can set certain thresholds when somebody needs to approve it. In my case, I've created here the batch and I'm also the next approver. So in this case, I can simply press view. And before I will actually process it, I will also open the standard view. So if I go to the payment file administration, we can currently see that the highest ID is currently 11. So we have only 11 files and there is nothing more. And the payment batch that I have here is the one that we're going to create. So at this point, we can see everything is fine and I need to create it. So I will switch to a different role in the same account. And now I'm a regular employee. So I'm not administrator anymore. I'm a standard employee with limited access. So again, I will simply go to the payment processing. That was already something I was afraid of. Give me 1 second. I will move this one here. I need to tweak one small setting. Give me a small second.
It only counts as a real demo if something goes wrong. Then
Yeah.
So no worries.
For some reason, I'm not able to do this directly, but I need to assign me temporarily in a higher role. Before I assign a role to me, because I need to be in a higher role in this case, I will first like to show you the additional protection I have built. So in this case, I'm a regular employee, and if I go to the payments, payment processing, payment file administration, under normal circumstances, I can simply press view and I can go into the payment file. And normally you will see here the payment file itself, and every user normally presses here and download and uploads the data to the bank. With additional protection that we have currently included, I could press download or edit or on the file, but we will see that I'm not allowed at this point anymore. So I've built a protection that this file is not accessible anymore in any way for me as a customer. If I would do that the same as an administrator, I can still access this. And this is because we are using the approval from NetSuite, and with that we can define a different folder where we're going to store the file. Because we are going to use the EFT upload function from FAS4, we can access the file still as a script, but the normal user cannot access the file anymore. So in this case, I will assign a role, and at that point I will proceed. Almost there. And now I should be able to switch to administrator to temporarily quickly approve the batch. So here we have to build payment processing. Here we could see the batch that was currently pending approval. And here I will simply press approve. And at the moment, when I press approve, at that point, NetSuite is going to create the payment batch itself. So this is the actual point that the payment batch will be created inside NetSuite. So this will take a few seconds to create. And as you can see, at this point, NetSuite has transformed the data into an actual payment file administration file. We can see it is currently processing, it is queued, so we have to wait a few seconds until NetSuite is ready with this process. And while we are waiting, I will tell you a little bit more about the customizations that I've done here. So the first thing, what you normally would see when a batch is created, that a regular user has the options to, for example, reverse a payment, change a payment, delete a payment. All those options are removed with the standard functionality. So we have only left the option to further approve if you need to, or upload. After this batch is ready, I have deployed a workflow on it. And the behavior from the workflow can be created in any way that you would like to. So you can say, as soon as NetSuite is ready with creating, also automatically upload without any human interference anymore. That could be option 1 that you could implement. Option 2 that you could implement is that you're going to say somebody really has to press a button upload before it is actually uploaded. So then it will be a user action, but still one single button that is going to upload the actual file to your bank. The third option that I will show you today is an additional approval flow. So we just had an approval flow for approving the payment file itself. And in this demo, I will show you an approval flow that is going for the next step, and that is basically somebody else needs to approve to actually upload the file. So I think it will be ready almost. File processed. Yeah. So I will temporarily switch back to the limited role, and I will go to the same payment batch that we just created. We can see here number 12 is the one we created, and in my custom role, you can see I do not have any options anymore further to play with it. But at this point, I have the workflow for submit for upload approval. So as soon as I would click this one, somebody in the company will get an email that this particular payment file is now ready and should be approved to really upload. So that can be, for example, the CFO of the company, or maybe the owner of the company that really would like to approve from his end the payment file that has been created before actually uploading this one. So in this case, of course, again, I'm also the approver in this case. So I could press upload, approve and upload. But before I will do that, I will show you a little bit more about the section of the upload. So I will go again to SFTP download configuration, and I will open the server, because we have here also a listing so that I can see what is actually uploaded onto the server. So I will open this one. In a few seconds, we will see what is actually currently in the upload section of the SFTP server, where we're going to store the payment file. So we can see currently there is no data on the SFTP server, and I will simply return to the payment file. So in this case, I'm really happy with this one. I would like to upload it to the bank, and I simply press approve and upload. As soon as I press this one, oh, I need to do one more thing. Did change a small setting. So again, I will press upload and approve. And at this point, the configuration is actually going to upload the file. So we will see in a few seconds that the process has been done. We will see who has uploaded the file. And at that point, the file will be further locked and we cannot do anything anymore. So we can see all the buttons are gone. There is no upload option anymore. Of course, for an administrator, there is still a re-upload option if you would like to. And we can see that it has been uploaded by General, and that is currently my user. If I would now go back to the listing and I would simply reload the page, we will see that the server is now containing our file number 12. And you can see here, the file is now actually present on the SFTP server. With your bank, you will have some agreements. So some banks are automatically processing the data on your request. It can be that your bank has also an additional approval inside the bank, so that somebody still needs to enter the portal to actually approve this particular file. So that depends on your bank how it is going to be processed. But at this point, without actually any human interference, the file is on your SFTP server from the bank. There was no way during the complete process that somebody could enter the file, change data, or alter anything that normally could have happened with the default standard NetSuite behavior. So with this way, we have a really secure way of uploading the data. We have an additional step included for the situation before we upload the data with an additional approval, and we have fully secured the file inside NetSuite. And the same applies to the download section. Without human interference, we were able to download the data, and with some minor additional configuration, we can automatically process the data into actual bank statements inside your NetSuite system. This was what I wanted to show during this demo. And I'm pretty sure that there will be maybe additional questions from your end about configuration options or other types that we can upload.
Yeah, Dennis, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So actually we got quite a few questions. Most of them I try to tackle, but as we have a few minutes, let me maybe just run through a few of these, right? And if you're not able to answer on the spot, then we can always still follow up. I'll run you through a few of them that I got that I wasn't able to answer myself. I got one from Kalian in the beginning of the session. He asked how to use today's date in the naming pattern field to change every day. Does that make sense? I think if you would export this as with a certain naming, if there would be a way to then default today's date in that naming pattern.
Our tool only allows to set a fixed name if you really would like to change the naming convention. But if you are generating files inside NetSuite with, for example, the payment module, then you can decide in that section how the naming convention should be handled. If you're creating files within your own NetSuite system from an external application or a customization, and then I would recommend to use that section to create a naming convention of your choice, that our tool simply can take over that convention and upload the file with that naming convention to the SFTP server of your choice.
Okay, perfect. Then there were a couple of questions, and I think there was now also another question coming in. That's regarding which banks are supported and which are not. So one of the answers I gave, Dennis, is that we're working on sort of a list of the banks that we've set this up with in the past. We don't have it publicly available yet, but we're working on it. Is there anything else that you can still add to that?
Yeah, basically, with the experience that we have currently with the SFTP connector and the banks that we integrate, is that most major banks do provide full support for SFTP. If you're not 100% sure if your bank does provide it, I would simply recommend contact your contact person on the bank side and ask them, do you provide an SFTP connector? And if so, what kind of identification do you use? That is always question one. And question two, also really important, what are potentially the additional costs on the bank side? Some banks are providing the SFTP server for free. Some banks are charging a monthly fee, some a yearly fee, so always request that information. But basically, if they answer yes, that is possible, and they would answer we have a username and password authentication, or we have a key pair and a username identification, we are able to connect automatically with the bank, and that should be a pretty straightforward process.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Next question, I also tried to answer that, but maybe it's good if you also address it. It's from up there. Can scheduling for downloading the statement files be set separately by bank account, or is it one setting for all accounts?
No, you can create any kind of customization or mapping that you would like to. When you are going to schedule a download or upload, we are using a safe search that you can define from your end to retrieve the configurations that we should be triggering. So if you have, for example, 10 configurations for downloading, and you only would like to trigger 5 at a certain time, you simply create one safe search that is only focusing those 5, and you include that safe search on the deployment. So you simply said this safe search is the safe search that's going to provide you the records that should be triggered when the script is going to run. So that section is fully customizable, and you can create as many script deployments as you would like to, and each deployment can have a different safe search on the background that is targeting different configurations that you would like to up or download.
Perfect. Then, sorry, I'm just we have quite a few open ones. I'm just trying to go through these. So one quick note, guys. I see that there are 1 or 2 questions. I had one from Hakwa, and I think there's also one from up there, which are more sort of technical errors that you are encountering. We'll follow up on those separately, yeah, because then it just makes more sense for us to just have a look at what error message you're getting. So I will follow up on that one separately after the webinar. I've written all of those down. Dennis, because we're slightly running out of time, I think you can also see there's a few open pending questions still in the Q&A. Is there anyone there that you can still add something to?
Yeah, so the first one from the anonymous attendee, if a payment file from the batch is rejected by the bank, how the entire app manage that? Basically, our SuiteApp itself does not provide you support in any way. But if the bank is providing feedback in a correct way, they will create a feedback file. And of course, a feedback file can be downloaded again with the SFTP connector. So if the bank is providing a feedback file, then simply configure an additional download configuration to capture that feedback. As soon as it comes inside the NetSuite system, you can apply any kind of logic to that file that you would like to. So you can maybe export it into a record, or you can create something else, or you can create a safe search. That is basically at that point your choice how you would like to display that feedback data inside your NetSuite system. The next question I see is if NetSuite fails with the file creation, do we still have options to recreate the file? If so, only administrator can do that or user. If NetSuite will fail, then standard logic will kick in. So you can still then at that point recreate the file. At this point, I decided to remove the buttons in any way. So you can of course tweak that configuration. So in this case, I set it to only administrators are able to do it. But you can also say that certain users, or maybe certain user roles, or maybe the head of finance only is able to recreate the file if that's really needed. So that section is customizable, but it will limit, of course, where you would like to have a certain option for a certain employee. The approval process of creating file and uploading file is optional. That's indeed, yeah. So you can say the approval process is something I really would like to. If you do not like that, you can simply leave it out of the configuration, and also the additional approval for uploading is optional. Then we have also a question from Peter. Can you make several payments in one batch with different payment dates? That is possible inside NetSuite. It's not really related with our SuiteApp, but NetSuite allows you to set a payment date. And of course, if your bank provides support for a delayed payment, then of course that will work perfectly fine. Then we have also a question from Mayo, if I pronounce it correctly. Is the SFTP SuiteApp free or cost us something? Indeed, there are costs involved. We have implementation cost and a yearly fee cost. If you would like to have more information, you can simply send us an email. I'm not sure of the email address. Can you?
Yeah, also when we share the recording and when we share some of the answers, we'll include a link to our website that contains the pricing address. You can always reach us at info@fast4.com. So any other questions or any, if you're really curious to see the pricing before we follow up with our email, send an email to that email address and then we'll pick that up.
And I see one last question from Sam. So not only bank statements can be obtained, but also CSV files. Seems like a perfect solution for month-end journal uploads. This is indeed true. We can download any kind of file. So it can be a simple bank statement file, it can be a TXT file, CSV file, or maybe even JPEG files or PDFs. Our tool can download any kind of file. So if you have an external location where there is some kind of journal CSV present, we can download that, and you can then also say to the download configuration, automatically trigger the import for me. So that can potentially really speed up your processes. I think, oh, we have some more questions, I see.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to answer the ones in the chat. So the people who are not using the Q&A, so maybe just still focus on the ones in Q&A, Dennis, and I'll try to, in the meantime, answer the ones in the regular chat.
Yeah, I see one that is regarding issues, so I will ignore that one. We will come back on that by email. In the UK, we have standard back files, but may need to be international payments. Does the system split these separately if needed? Basically, I'm not sure if I understand the question, but we do not provide any kind of logic for splitting the files if you would like to. Of course, it is something that can be created, it can be included. You can further customize inside our tools if you would like to. And also Fast4 has a development team that can do quite a lot. So most likely what you're searching for is something that Fast4 can create at an additional price. So if you would like to have more information, I would recommend to contact us separately so we can discuss what kind of options we can maybe provide from our end. Then one last question that I see outstanding in the Q&A is from Jackie. If you have the connection importing bank statements several times a day, will each transaction only appear once? Basically, it should not be possible. If your bank is providing bank statements, even if they provide multiple statements during the day, it should be the situation that each statement is only containing unique transactions. And with the logic that we could define that I showed you in the download configuration, we can define what we would like to do with the download files. In this case, I would like to delete it, for example, or move it to a certain path. And with this behavior, you are making sure that you can never download the same file twice. So that should also protect you automatically against duplicated transactions due to those duplicate imports. So basically, it should not be possible that that situation could ever occur. I see one last question coming in. If it is possible to use OCR ref in reconciliation process. I think this is more a question related to our OCR and bank rec. So I do not think this is the proper channel to answer this question. But feel free to send an email to support@fast4.com with this question, and we will answer that as quickly as possible.
Great, thank you, Dennis. Then I think we reached our time limit for today. So let's wrap it up. We'll make sure that we'll review all the questions, make sure we've answered that live. We'll follow up with everyone who I've promised to follow up on. Like I've written that all down in a document here. We'll make sure to follow up. Recording will be shared with everyone who attended. We'll also be sharing some further information on where you can find pricing on the application. While you're at our website, please also feel free to check out any of the other applications. So we've mentioned bank reconciliation. We also have a great application for OCR processes called Scan and Capture. With that, I would like to really thank you all for attending. Thank you for your attention. Thanks for the great interactive nature and the questions you gave us. We'll respond to those as soon as we can, and we'll look forward to seeing you during our next webinar. Thanks, guys. Take care. And thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Take
nice
care.
day. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.